Superheroes have always been popular, so it came as no surprise when they started making the jump to the big screen. It wasn't until around the turn of the century, however, that the genre really saw a boom unlike anything else it had seen before. Throughout the years, audiences have been treated to hundreds of superhero films, some great, some serviceable, and some outright terrible. The script, being the birthplace of the movie, is arguably its most important element. In the case of superhero films in particular, the quality of the screenplay can make or break the whole thing. Indeed, some of the most derided and divisive superhero movies ever made have scripts that could be considered weak at best and atrocious at worst. Kicking off our list at number 10 is Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. With the birth of the new DCU, fans can only hope that it's not as bogged down by studio interference and poor creative decisions as the old DCU, a period characterized by way too many ideas for any screenwriter to handle. There's a solid film buried deep inside Dawn of Justice, and a few great performances and some flashes of directorial skill by Zack Snyder almost allow that film to come to the surface, but they never quite get there. The script is just too much of a mess. Despite having a solid start, it's a screenplay with too many underbaked ideas and characters, some ridiculous plot conveniences, and a cartoonish villain with a plan so contrived that it's almost nonsensical. With a good bit of fat trimmed off the edges, perhaps Batman v Superman could have been the exceptional movie that it clearly had the potential to be.
The world needs to know what happened, and to know what he stands for. That kind of power is very dangerous.
At number 9, we have The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Many people have forgotten all about it, and perhaps that's for the best. Set in an alternate Victorian-era steampunk world, it's about a group of famous characters from contemporary works of fantasy, sci-fi, and adventure fiction teaming up on a secret mission. It's a silly little romp with a fantastic premise, so it's not exactly a waste of time for people who are able to enjoy that kind of thing, but there's no getting around it. This isn't a well-written film. The story is both stupid and trite, as well as cherry-picking elements from the source material and then proceeding to not know what to do with them. The characters are pointless plot devices, and the movie's many big set pieces don't provoke much emotion. It's a fascinating setup wasted on a lackluster execution.
And the game is on.
Coming in at number 8 is Green Lantern. Before 2011, Martin Campbell had admittedly directed quite a few embarrassing flops, but he had also directed two of the best 007 movies of all time, GoldenEye and Casino Royale, so there could be some glimmer of hope in his version of Green Lantern. Alas, all that hope was burned in the trash when the film actually came out. In it, a reckless pilot is granted an alien ring that gives him otherworldly powers and inducts him into the intergalactic police force of the Green Lanterns. Green Lantern is one of the worst superhero movies of the 2010s, with some atrocious direction by Campbell and some horrible visual effects, but the movie's biggest villain is the writing. The plot doesn't thicken until nearly an hour in, the story and characters are paper-thin, the antagonists are silly and uninteresting, and nothing happens that's particularly compelling in any way.
The great light has gone out in the universe. Worlds annihilated. Lanterns, we face an unprecedented danger.
Number 7 is Madam Web. The second-to-last fiasco from the now-dead Sony Spider-Man-less universe, Madam Web is about a Manhattan paramedic with clairvoyant abilities who forms a relationship with three young women destined for powerful futures, but only if she can help them survive their threatening present. The laughably clunky and exposition-heavy dialogue is so bad that it has even been mocked by John Mulaney at the Oscars, no less. But that's not even the worst part about Madam Web's screenplay. Unlike Morbius, there's an actual snippet of what might have been a real creative vision in the first couple of drafts, but that just makes the fact that it got squashed halfway through all the more tragic. The character arcs are predictable and uninspired, the story is surprisingly boring, and the superpowers on display are uninteresting and don't get any time to actually shine. At number 6, we have Catwoman. Catwoman's reputation precedes it. It's generally regarded as one of the most legendarily awful superhero movies of all time, and for good reason. A very loose adaptation of the story of the titular DC Comics character, it's about a shy woman who's endowed with the speed, reflexes, and senses of a cat. She starts using those abilities to walk the thin line between hero and criminal, while a detective fascinated by her dual personas pursues her. While a huge portion of what makes Catwoman so horrible comes from the directing, editing, and visual effects, the script is most definitely not free from sin. Managing to be somehow both awfully predictable and uniquely stupid, the movie's narrative is a hodgepodge of lazy character arcs, bad dialogue, creative elements that don't match even if you try to force them to, and boy do they try to force them to, and unengaging action scenes.
What the hell is wrong with you, Phillips? Your incompetence is staggering.
Alright folks. Listen up. If you are enjoying the content of this channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button and give the video a good old-fashioned thumbs up. Let's show the creators some love. Halfway through our list at number 5 is Fantastic Four. Say that again. It's the phrase from Fantastic Four, also known as Fantastic Four, that has been endlessly memed and parodied since it came out a decade ago. It's the blandest possible adaptation of the story of Marvel's oldest superhero team. They're four outsiders who are teleported to an alternate and dangerous universe, which gives them unique abilities. They must learn to harness them so they can work together to stop a former friend turned enemy. Fantastic Four is far and away one of the worst Marvel movies ever, a dumb, lifeless, and entirely charmless dud with nothing to offer. The script is particularly bad, poorly structured, lacking in action and excitement, with no sense of humor, and with some of the most terrible dialogue imaginable. Its villain is painfully forgettable and it offers no payoffs that are genuinely satisfying, making it a waste of time for Marvel fans or any movie viewer, really.
Could advance our knowledge about planetary life
To our future.
I don't trust him. We got what we wanted. Just worried about what he wants.
Number 4 is Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. The story behind Superman 4, The Quest for Peace is as tragic as the movie's low quality. After Superman 3 was a failure with critics, the rights to the Superman franchise were sold off to the Cannon Group. With tremendous budget constraints and cutbacks in all departments, and barely inspired by Christopher Reeve's own proposal of a story dealing with themes of nuclear fear, they made this fiasco about Superman fighting Nuclear Man, a force created by Lex Luthor to finally stop the Man of Steel. Nuclear Man is one of the worst movie villains ever written, but that's far from being the only issue with the writing of Superman 4. The movie doesn't just look and sound cheap, the story also feels boring and low effort. There's no emotional core, the action is barely consequential, and the themes are so painfully on the nose that it's hard to even care about them.
I'm going to do what our governments have been unwilling or unable to do. Effective immediately, I'm going to rid our planet of all nuclear weapons.
Taking the third spot is Steel. Everyone is aware that Shaquille O'Neal is one of the greatest basketball players of all time, but what not everyone may know is that, once upon a time, he tried his hand at a movie acting career, too. Evidently, it didn't work out, and the world is all the better for it. The athlete superstar's worst movie is Steel, where a scientist turns himself into a superhero when a version of a weapon created by him is being used by gangs on the streets. Steel is the lowest-rated mainstream superhero movie on IMDb, and anyone who has seen it will agree that it's a well-earned title. Aside from Shaq delivering a terrible performance, the script is even worse. The hero is a boring Mary Sue, the story is composed entirely of cliché after cliché, and the themes of racial harmony are delivered in so saccharine a way that they don't really have much of an effect.
Deal the next generation of superweapons to the world. The weapon.
At number 2, we have Wonder Woman 1984. First, Patty Jenkins revitalized the DCU with Wonder Woman, its best film up to that point. 3 years later, she obliterated her character with the astronomically underwhelming sequel Wonder Woman 1984. In it, Wonder Woman finds herself battling a shrewd entrepreneur and a friend-turned-foe in a global conspiracy that makes her cross paths with her former lover, the deceased then-resurrected Steve Trevor. The plot is awfully convoluted and confusing, the tone and dialogue are cheesy at best and silly at worst, and the characters' motivations often make no sense. But the worst part is the character assassination of Wonder Woman, who the script turns into a morally deplorable brat that decides to parade around and have sex with the spirit of Steve Trevor while he possesses the body of another man. This essentially makes her one of the worst movie heroes of modern times, and makes it pretty much impossible to root for her.
Have you ever been in love?
A long, long time ago.
And finally, our top pick is Batman and Robin. Hilariously horrible and incompetent to the point of being endlessly rewatchable, the iconic superhero disaster Batman and Robin actually managed to kill the live-action Batman franchise until Christopher Nolan revived it 8 years later with Batman Begins. In this campy comedy, Batman and Robin struggle to keep their relationship strong while trying to stop Mr. Freeze and Poison Ivy from freezing Gotham City. Of course, Joel Schumacher's unnecessarily colorful direction has been criticized more than enough, but the script of Batman and Robin is a bigger villain than Mr. Freeze and Poison Ivy combined. The jokes and one-liners are cringe-worthily idiotic, the characters are unlikable caricatures, and the many questionable creative choices, from the bat nipples to the bat credit card, are, well, questionable. The writing leans so far into the farcical that Batman and Robin becomes a parody of itself and an obnoxious one, at that.
Freeze. Learn it well, for it's the chilling sound of your doom.
Thanks for watching. What do you think of our list? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more movie content.